Sharon Bider? Oh, yes, hi.
Hi.
And then if I could, while you're getting comfortable there, Dua Hijazi, Brooke Coatsworth, and David Cox are my next. I think one of those is a video call. Those are queued up behind you. Go ahead, Sharon, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be able to present to this council, to this committee. My name is Sharon Bider, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Toronto350, which is a volunteer-led local activist group focused on climate action, climate justice, Indigenous rights, and sovereignty. We're affiliated with other 350.org groups around the world, so we're part of a larger context. Toronto350 applauds the efforts of city staff and this committee to make this year's budget process more collaborative, inclusive, and transparent. It really is a good feel to be presenting here today, so thank you. But we also note with great concern that recent town halls suggest that the city has failed to communicate to residents and businesses the significant impacts of climate change, including huge costs that will be borne by all of us in the form of property loss and substantial tax increases to repair damage from weather events that we face in the future. So addressing this gap in understanding really has to be a priority for this city. Further, we don't see evidence that the 2024 Toronto budget, as it's currently cast, reflects the scale of spending required to meet the city's net zero by 2040 goals, or the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty, which the Council endorsed in July 2021. We expect this committee to request from staff a detailed accounting of the funding against commitments that were made in the Transform TO Net Zero strategy to ensure that these critical initiatives are delivered on time. I participated in a very excellent consultation process, so we don't want to lose that. We hope that this budget will reflect your commitment to an equitable and green post-pandemic recovery. We're still in the recovery mode. And in this context, we ask the city to consider the following for immediate action. First, enhance public transit. The city should ensure full funding of initiatives to enhance public transit throughout this city, including the Scarborough Busway, which is a big opportunity. And we heard from another deputant that Finch Avenue desperately needs better transportation as well. Support and promote green energy for heating and cooling buildings. This being our largest source of emissions. 30% of the emissions of the city are due to heating and cooling. And we rely on natural gas for most of this power. This budget must fund resources for aggressive promotion, planning, and implementation of electrification and wind and solar energy sources. And it must fund drafting city building code amendments to set a timeline for eliminating natural gas heating. Third, we need to increase funding for low emissions, affordable, housing development, including non-market rental housing, with a focus on increasing densification near conveniently accessible transit. So we're asking for increased investments in the rent bank and the EPIC programs and the multi-unit residential acquisition program in order to prevent loss of affordable housing units. Fourth, we're asking that you fund the energy retrofit program at a rate that is better than the business as planned scenario, and provide funds for staffing to implement the emissions performance standards so that you can meet the council adopted interim targets for net zero by 2040. This has to be done while protecting tenants from above guideline rent increases and renovictions. So it's a challenge. Fifth, and finally, we applaud the city's move to establish a carbon budget that will integrate climate targets from the city's climate action plan into the financial budgeting process. And we urge you to proceed in all haste on this initiative. Concerning revenue, Toronto350 endorses the 10.5% revenue increase proposed, and we strongly support the city working with other levels of government to establish revenue from a percentage of income tax or a municipal sales tax as a future revenue tool. We expect that this would be done with the appropriate protections for those with low income. Because this next decade is critical in keeping the world a habitable place for both current and future generations, we ask that you consider our action requests and be a leader in climate justice-focused budgeting. Thank you for your time and consideration.
That was pretty well timed. Councillor Saxe, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you, Sharon, and thank you for the work that 350 does here and around the world. You asked for hundreds of millions of dollars of investments, which would be wonderful if we had an income tax or a sales tax, which, as you know, Doug Ford will not let us do. Given our actual financial reality, what's the single most fast, cheapest, transformative thing you think we could do on climate?
Ooh, that's a tough question for me. I knew you'd ask me one of those. I'd like to make sure we answer that responsively. My instinct is to say electrification is within reach because we do have the opportunity to move forward with it. But I need to get back to you on what
Okay, do it fast. Budget Days committee wraps up on Friday.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much.
Well, Councillor Saxe has made me need to ask a question. Sharon, I just had one other question. Does Toronto350 advocate for these needs to the other orders of government?
Yes, we do. We actually have letter writing campaigns that involve, and currently there are regulations that are in play that are being prepared at the federal level. And of course, we advocate strongly at the provincial level as well. So yes, we do. And we recognize that the city is a bit of a bit player in the larger issue. So we really want your advocacy on behalf of the city as much as anything else.
Well, I'll remind my colleague that what the Premier said was on the idea of that generous revenue tool was not now, not never. So if you could help us to keep the pressure up, we could meet those net zero goals for the city and help them meet their goals too. Because we're the best implementers and deliverers of this stuff. We just need the resources to do it. So advocating for us to have a mature source of revenue that is attached to the economy would be a great help.
I think you can count on it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.